So this satsanga is very important. Any other experiences?
I find it a lot more enjoyable with the singing and the drums and just chanting.
Do you play an instrument?
I played guitar and I'm a salsa dancer in general.
That's nice. I thought so because you were moving really nicely.
Oh, thanks.
Good technique.
It resonates with me.
That's nice. We've started off with the monthly, doing this every month, and we have other ideas about some things that we might do for future classes, including some of you said you might be interested in learning cooking. We have some really good cooks around too. And we can do a cooking class as part of this too, because you are what you eat, not just in body, but also mind and spirit. It makes a big difference. The kind of food that you eat. It's also almost an intangible, but many years ago there was a book, a novel, and a movie that followed it called Like Water for Chocolate. Did anybody ever hear of that movie? I'm not necessarily recommending it, but the theme of the whole thing was the novel, it was a romantic novel, and it was all about how whatever somebody cooks, when somebody cooks, their particular consciousness goes into the food. And when you eat it, you pick up that similar consciousness. So many of the foods that are available nowadays at the grocery store are not actually foods, but they are food-like substances. And the vibration, for instance, I always experience when I travel in the airport, I always bring my own food because I don't like airplane food. I don't know who's handled it and where it's come, even if it's vegetarian. And if I run out of things to eat when I'm on a long trip, sometimes if I look in the airport, I see everything's packaged in plastic, and sort of the vibration of the whole thing is killed. But if you go home and have home cooking, with someone who loves you, and sit down and eat, and there's a satisfaction that you get. And this is a very important part of yoga, is how you eat. And so we advocate this balanced eating, and also eating food that's been cooked with a kind of with a spiritual consciousness. So we cook in a certain way that we're conscious while we're cooking, and the food we make it as a sort of a sacrament, an offering, like out of gratitude. All the ingredients came, we didn't make them, we offer them back to the original source where they came, and so we make it kind of a celebration in eating. And that kind of eating too it's very attractive. It's good for the mind and body, and it really opens up the spiritual energy center. So eating and singing, I mean, you can't beat that. Before I came across these ideas back in 1973, I was a very committed yogi in my teens, and I was reading books about yoga and performing austerities. I let my hair get matted, much to the chagrin of my parents and teachers at high school, and gave up wearing shoes and started eating very sparingly, thinking that this would, complement my spiritual advancement. And then I read a book about Bhakti, and about how by eating, these spiritualized foodstuffs, that naturally you would come up to a higher level. And they were sumptuous. They weren't very austere palmfuls of this and that. My mind, even though I tried to restrain it, was attracted immediately into the singing, instead of sitting for long hours staring at a candle flame, which has its use also in our own personal practice on a daily level. Taking as Matthew said, the responsibility to actually sit down and observe yourself, observe your mind, and center yourself, and practice saying the mantra yourself. It makes you very strong spiritually, because it's not normally done. Most people just let it run, and they never even think about even that it's running. It's an unconscious thing. Consciousness is amazing. When I was in Hungary on that farm I was telling you about, you don't take electricity for granted, because in the morning we used to use candlelight, and everyone gets up around 4, and then you're used to the sun coming up, and then you get to see everything. And at nighttime, people turn off lights because it's the only lights coming there are from solar and candle power. And then just last night I was taking my walk. I live in Burlingame. I was taking a walk down the main road that I live on, and I saw how Saturday night, and everyone had all their lights on, porch lights, living room lights, everything. They weren't even home mostly. And they just leave it on, sort of unconsciously. So we often just leave our mental lights just running and running and running, and don't even think about preserving them or using them in a certain way. So this kind of meditation helps us really appreciate what we have, the assets that we naturally have that come from within us. So the next part of our program is that we have, well, I'll have Hansapriya explain